Good afternoon. Today, our topic is worldview principles or constants of the Russian civilization. And here is the list of questions we're going to focus on. First, historical background of the ideological foundations of Russian civilization. Question 2, value features of Russian worldview. And finally, question 3, symbolism of Russian worldview. So let's turn to question 1. The ideological foundations of Russian civilization were shaped by various historical factors, including natural conditions, government, religion, and culture. These factors influenced the formation of the national mentality, collective values, and key historical processes. Harsh continental climate and vast plains predetermined the need for a strong centralized government. The need for intensive labor during the short agricultural season contributed to the development of character traits such as hard work, endurance, and mutual assistance. The acceptance of Christianity and specifically Orthodoxy as the official religion of the state served as the cornerstone for the development of the national philosophy, art, linguistic and literary traditions, educational system, cultural practices, and customs of the Russian people. With the adoption of Christianity, which began in 988 under Prince Vladimir I, Byzantine culture and philosophy started to actively influence the Russian lands. Christianization led to a change in Russian people's mentality. Their religion influenced the formation of new values, customs, and norms of behavior. For the first time, society was introduced to the concept of sin, which was not present in the pagan worldview. The new religion laid the foundations for the further unification of the East Slavic tribes. The feeling of tribal solidarity gave way to a sense of the unity of all Russians. Russia was recognized as a Christian state, which led to a higher level of relations with European countries and people. Strengthening of princely power was also among the consequences of the adoption of Christianity. The Church instilled in its subjects the need for obedience to princely power, and in the princes a sense of their great responsibility. Orthodox doctrine dictated that the ruler must be a faithful defender of the true faith and adhere to its principles. This led to close cooperation between the Church and the state, which contributed to the strengthening and stability of state power in Russia. Through the spread of Christianity, Russia gained access to techniques such as icon painting, fresco, mosaic, bricklaying, dome construction, and stone cutting. With the introduction of Christianity, writing in the Slavic language began. Handwritten books were created and schools were founded at monasteries. The first monastery in Russia was the Kiev Monastery, founded in the middle of the 11th century. The Church had a strong influence on morality and ethics. It opposed the practice of human sacrifice, fought against the slave trade, and worked to reduce slavery. This led to an increase in the civic capacity and maternal authority of Russian women, as well as the strengthening of the family. After the Ottomans captured Constantinople in 1453, Byzantium fell. Some of the works of Byzantine art were exported to Muscovy. The marriage of the Moscow Grand Duke Ivan III to the Greek princess Sophia Palaeologus, the niece of the last Byzantine emperor, became symbolic. A theological, historiographical, and political concept Moscow as the Third Rome was formed, asserting that Moscow is the successor of the Roman Empire and Byzantium. It was formulated by the monk Philotheos, who lived in the 16th century and aimed to justify the transfer of the political and religious center of the Orthodox world to Russia. The other moral imperatives based on traditional spiritual and moral values, which formed the foundation of Russia's state model, included, for example, love for the motherland, preserving the memory of ancestors, and protecting historical truths. Traditions of communal land use and collective work have also become an important part of Russian culture. The historical experience of communal empathy contributed to the strengthening of unity and mutual assistance. Contacts with the peoples of the steppe, especially the Mongols, that lasted for several centuries, have influenced the character traits and worldview of the Russian people. The strengthening of the concept of supreme authority became particularly important. In the Golden Horde, which dominated over Russia for more than 2 centuries, the Mongol Khan's power was unlimited, absolute, and despotic. Some scholars believe that the Muscovite state arose in part thanks to the Tatar York, as the centralization of the fragmented Russian principalities around Moscow coincided with the Russian struggle against the Mongols. Both processes culminated at roughly the same time during Ivan III's reign. The Mongol York posed a serious external challenge to Russian statehood. However, Russian civilization successfully overcame this challenge, and Russian statehood entered a new stage. The main point is that while before the arrival of the Mongols, the Russian lands were governed by a host of princes, and matters were resolved collectively. In 1480, at the time of the victory over the Golden Horde, Rus had a single sovereign, the Grand Prince of Moscow, then Ivan III, the founder of the centralized Russian state. The Mongol dominance over Rus, which lasted for more than 2 centuries, strengthened the Russian character. Indeed, the Horde invasion brought much suffering, destruction, and loss to the Russian lands, hindering economic development for a long time. However, it was precisely these events that served as the impetus for the formation of a centralized, strong, and independent Russia. The renowned Russian historian Kluchevsky, who lived in the 19th century, wrote, these are his exact words: the Mongol York was a harsh school in which the Russian nation came to understand itself as such and acquired character traits that facilitated its subsequent struggle for existence. Paradoxical as it may sound, the Golden Hordeum contributed to the preservation of a distinctive Russian culture and worldview. This is explained simply. The Tatar Mongols were noted for their religious tolerance and had no intention of imposing their religion and cultural norms on Rus. The situation was quite different with the Swedes and Lithuanians, who also laid claim to Russian lands and wanted to convert the local population to Catholicism. Catholicism or Western Christianity. While these plans were partially realized in the southwest, the northeastern principalities remained under the control of the Golden Horde and escaped the Western invaders. Russian culture based on orthodoxy was not only preserved but also enriched with Turkic elements. For example, approximately 2,000 new words entered our language. Russians borrowed some types of Mongolian weapons, equipment, and clothing. Many variants, especially linguistic, took root so deeply among the Russian people that they became an integral part of our daily lives. Among the other factors that contributed to ideological foundations of Russian civilization were the vast territories that the Russian state acquired in Europe and Asia. In the 16th century, Russian Tsars began to spread their influence eastwards. The development of Siberia began. Since the 16th century, Russia has been a multi-ethnic and multicultural state civilization. Contacts with members of other cultures and traditions fostered a more open and tolerant attitude towards diversity, enriching Russian worldview. So we have discussed question 1 of the lecture, and let's turn to question 2. Question 2, value, features of the worldview of Russian civilization. I would like to discuss the worldview of Russian culture through the lens of a 5-tier model. This model consists of 5 elements or layers, each with its own set of values and characteristics. There is a conceptual national civilizational code that connects 5 key elements. Individual, these elements are individual or man, family, society, state, and country. So these are the elements of the model. Man is the key subject of social existence. Family is the primary form of social organization, and society is a civilizationally determined form of social organization. A family of families, so-called family of families. State is organized society, and the country as a region with clearly defined boundaries, where the people share a common history, culture, and economy. So the values that correspond to each of these elements are creativity and development for men, that's level 1 or the first level. Then tradition, love, and responsibility. These values refer to family. Solidarity and cooperation refer to society. Solidarity or harmony and cooperation, they refer to society. Then trust, strength, sovereignty for the state. Sovereignty, strength, and trust. And finally, patriotism, unity in diversity. These values refer to the country. That's the highest level. And let's discuss these levels with the model one by one. Let's discuss each of the elements of this model. The first on the list is man and the values of creativity and development. Development is the highest form of movement and change in nature and society, associated with the transition from one state or quality to another, from the old to the new. And development is not just any change, but a so-called qualitative change in the structure or composition of an object or system. As for creativity at the level of value orientations is revealed as the value of success, self-actualization in various spheres, understanding the dependence of success and well-being on personal effort, focus on personal growth and development, civic self-awareness, and awareness of oneself as part of society, country, and state. This refers to the first level, man. Now, the next one, love and responsibility. Love and responsibility, these values refer to the second level, family. Love and responsibility, in most general sense, the connection with someone that is preserved as good, what means relating to someone or something as unconditionally valuable, a union with one of the highest values. Since Socrates, love has been viewed primarily as a special state of the human soul and the human relationship. For Plato, love is the pursuit of the sublime and the beautiful. The same thesis is developed by Aristotle's doctrine of love-friendship, for whom it was important to show that true love rests on reciprocity, benevolence, trust, care, and the pursuit of virtue and perfection. The Christian concept of love as described in the New Testament, I remind you that the New Testament is a part of the Bible, the Holy Scripture. So the Christian concept of love emphasizes self-sacrifice, caring, and giving as essential aspects of love. Christian merciful love is not a result of personal sympathy or admiration for others. It is the actualization of the kindness of a person. Love is impossible without responsibility and respect. Traditions, the next value, at the level of value attitudes, are described as family traditions. family and children. Family as a union of generations characterized by respect for elders and care for younger ones, and family as a space of safety, love, and support. So this refers to the second level family. Now, let's take a step further. Consent. Consent is the agreement. So now we're going to characterize society from value perspective. Consent means the agreement between two or more parties on certain properties and actions. At the practical level, it is understood as having similar thoughts, feelings, intentions, and beliefs, as well as spiritual and psychological state that allows individuals to not only agree on a common goal, but also actively participate in its realization. Consent is based on the assumption of trust, equality, and the other party being seen as an equal, not as an object, but as a person with an independent status. And consent is very closely linked to solidarity or harmony in society. Solidarity in society, the level of value is expressed as mutual assistance and support. Tolerance for different opinions, rejection of anything that divides society, and condemnation of discrimination based on nationality, religion, and age. The next on the list is, there is a little information about the ideas of French philosophers of the Enlightenment epoch on consent. Idea of consent was conceptualized as a reasonable human agreement, formed the basis of the contractual concept of the formation and functioning of society and the state. In the treatises, in the works of French and English philosophers of the Age of Enlightenment. That's okay. Now we are going to talk about sovereignty. Sovereign state, in the classical interpretation, is a state that exercises the right to independence, governance, decision-making, and is free to exercise the functions of supreme power from external influence. In other words, state sovereign power is the highest power within a country's borders. There can be two types of sovereignty. First, internal sovereignty, and second, external sovereignty. As for internal sovereignty, it is manifested in the possession of a number of exclusive rights, in particular the right to issue laws that are binding on the population, the right to levy taxes, the right to create and use special means of influencing the population, or coercive apparatus. And external sovereignty is manifested firstly in the recognition of the formal legal independence of the country in international affairs or on the international arena. Secondly, the ability to pursue an independent foreign policy, protecting national interests. And in the constitution of the Russian Federation, it is said that the bearer of sovereignty and the only source of power in the Russian Federation shall be its multinational people. The Russian Federation is a multinational state. There are more than 190 peoples. The people shall exercise their power directly and also through the bodies of state power and local self-government. The supreme a direct expression of the power of the people shall be a referendum and free elections. No one may usurp power in the Russian Federation. Seizure of power or usurping state authority shall be prosecuted by federal law. The sovereignty of the Russian Federation shall cover the whole of its territory. The Constitution of the Russian Federation and federal laws shall have supremacy in the whole territory of the Russian Federation, and the Russian Federation shall ensure the integrity and inviolability. These are articles, these are from Article 3 and Article 4 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation that was introduced, that was accepted in 1993 under President Boris Yeltsin. Trust at the level of value attitudes means first and foremost recognition of the competence and effectiveness of the government, recognition of the openness of the government, respectful attitude towards individuals. Unity of goals between the government and society, and trust in democratic procedures. First of all, elections, democratic elections. So we have discussed value constants that refer to the level of state. And now we're going to discuss unity and diversity and patriotism, fifth level, country. So unity and diversity. Today, Russia is home to more than 190 different ethnic groups who speak more than 270 languages and dialects. Despite their diversity, all these groups belong to the same Russian civilization, which forms a united whole. The citizens of Russia consider themselves part of this civilization, which is known as the Russian identity. And of course, unity and diversity, the idea of unity and diversity is expressed in patriotism of the Russian people. Patriotism at the value level means identifying oneself with the country, linking one's life to the country, seeing the future of one's children in this country, being proud of the country, of your motherland, understanding the importance of protecting the integrity, sovereignty, and independence of Russia. And now let's turn to next question, question 3. That is a long one. Symbolism of Russian worldview. So we're going to talk about different symbols of Russian worldview. So we have already touched upon Russian symbolism in the first lecture, and today we shall continue to discuss this topic and take a deeper dive into Russian symbols, both official and unofficial. And first of all, let's define the symbol, the term symbol. Symbol can be defined as an idea, image, or object that has its own content and at the same time presents some other content in a generalized, non-expanded form. There is always an image behind the symbol that embodies an idea. Symbols allow people to go beyond what is known or seen by creating linkages between otherwise different concepts and experiences. The state symbols of Russia are the coat of arms, the anthem, and the flag. So first of all, of course, I'm going to focus on official symbols, although there are also unofficial symbols. So official symbols of Russia. It's the Russian coat of arms, anthem, and national flag of the Russian Federation. Let's start with national flag. The Russian flag is rectangular, so you can see it on the slide. Okay, so the Russian flag is a rectangular cloth of 3 equal horizontal stripes: white, blue, and red. The first 3 striped white, blue, and red flag, known as the flag of the Tsar of Moscow, was raised in 1693 during Peter I's voyage through the White Sea with a detachment of warships. Until the early 18th century, it served both as the Russian state flag and as Peter I's personal flag or standard. In 1858, Emperor Alexander II adopted the first official state flag of the Russian Empire, a black, yellow, and white banner. However, the black, yellow, and white flag remained the official symbol only until 1883, when Emperor Alexander III decreed that the white, blue, and red flag be used as the civil flag, while the previous one was retained as the standard of the imperial family. After the October Revolution of 1917, the white, blue, and the red tricolor was replaced by a red flag bearing a hammer and a sickle, a symbol of Soviet power and communist ideology. You can see it on the slide. With the formation of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in December 1922, a new national flag was introduced, a red rectangular cloth bearing a golden hammer and sickle in the upper corner near the flagpole, and above them a red 5-pointed star framed by a gold border. In 1991, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the birth of the Russian Federation, the white, blue, and red tricolor was readopted as the national flag of the Russian Federation. In 1993, a presidential decree approved the regulations governing the flag of Russia, and in the year 2000, the federal constitutional law on the state flag of the Russian Federation was adopted. The flag of the Russian Federation may be displayed during ceremonial events organized by businesses, institutions, and during family celebrations. It is permissible to display the Russian flag on your balcony or in your country home. When displaying the flag of the Russian Federation and flags of its constituent entities or subjects of the Russian Federation, because there are 89 subjects of the Russian Federation, and of course each of them has their own official symbols. So when displaying the flag of the Russian Federation and flags of its constituent entities at the same time, the Russian flag must not be smaller or positioned lower than the flags of these constituent entities. Now let's turn to national. Let's turn to national emblem of Russia. The coat of arms the coat of arms. The history of the Russian coat of arms dates back to the era of ancient Russian state. But the country's current state symbol was approved on November 30th, 1993. The history of the coat of arms includes changes in various periods. The era of ancient Rus, the era of the Russian Empire, the period of the USSR, and finally the modern Russia. In the ancient Rus, special princely seals served as coats of arms. Initially, they contained the name of the prince's patron saint, and the prince's name. Later, the seals began to feature an image of an armed horseman, the symbol of the seal's owner. Under Ivan III, the first Grand Ducal seal appeared, depicting a double-headed eagle on one side and the horseman with a serpent on the other. The features of this coat of arms underwent minor changes during the imperial period, namely during the reigns of Peter the Great and Alexander II. The symbols were adopted from the Byzantium by Ivan III. So during the Soviet period, state symbols changed. Yeah, here you can see the emblem or the coat of arms of the imperial house of the last ruling dynasty in the Byzantine Empire. So it looks quite similar to Russian national emblem. So there is sort of similarity because the emblem, I mean Russian national emblem, was adopted from Byzantium by Ivan III when he married a Byzantium princess, the niece of the last Byzantium emperor. And as for Soviet period, during the Soviet period, state symbols changed. In 1923, a new coat of arms was introduced. The coat of arms depicted a hammer and sickle against a globe, surrounded by sunbeams and ears of grain, with the inscription in the languages of the Union republics. Proletarians of the world unite, and there were 15 different republics in the Soviet Union. At the top of the coat of arms was a 5-pointed red star with a yellow rim. As for the modern coat of arms, it's a rectangular red heraldic shield with rounded lower corners and a pointed tip, bearing a golden double-headed eagle with its wings raised. The eagle is surmounted by 2 small crowns, and above them a single large crown connected by a ribbon. On the eagle's right claw is a scepter, in the left an orbs, the symbols of power. On the eagle's chest, within a red shield, is a silver rider in a blue cloak on a silver horse, slain with a silver spear, a black dragon overturned and trampled by the horse. So that's how modern Russian emblem or coat of arms looks. And anthem. The history of the Russian anthem includes different periods: the period of the Russian Empire, the period of the USSR, and modern Russia. In December 1833, the official anthem of the Russian Empire was introduced under the title "God Save the Tsar." In the Soviet period, from 1918 to 1944, the International Workers' Anthem was played in the USSR as the national anthem. A new Soviet anthem was approved in 1944 during the Great Patriotic War. From 1991 to 2000, the Russian anthem was a patriotic song with music by composer Mikhail Glinka, and the anthem had no words. And in the year 2000, Russian President Putin proposed using the music of the previous Soviet anthem and writing new lyrics. The new anthem, with music by Alexander Alexandrov and the lyrics by Sergei Mikhalkov, became the official national anthem. The new anthem was first officially performed at a gala reception in the Grand Kremlin Palace to celebrate the New Year, and on January the 1st, 2001, it was played following the Russian president's New Year's address. So that was the anthem, national anthem of the Russian Federation. Besides the official symbols of Russia, there are also unofficial symbols. These are images, objects, phenomena without being legally fixed, without being legally fixed, have significant cultural value and are associated with the country. They reflect the history, traditions, and values of the people. For example, the Russian language and the Cyrillic alphabet are two important symbols of Russia's culture. Cyrillic is one of the oldest Slavic alphabets, descending from the Greek alphabet. It developed at the turn of the 9th and 10th centuries. The alphabet was named Cyrillic because it was invented by the Greek missionary monks Cyril and Methodius. They were brothers. The Cyrillic alphabet has been an integral part of Russia's national identity, and as it is the basis for a vast number of cultural artifacts. Additionally, it served as the foundation for the alphabets of many of the peoples that lived within the borders of the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union. So these are Russian letters. Okay, and now we shall turn to Moscow Kremlin. Moscow Kremlin, one of the most important symbols of Russian statehood. For over 1,000 years, it has been the heart of the country's political, cultural, and spiritual life. The Moscow Kremlin is one of the largest architectural and urban development ensembles in the world. It stands in the center of the Russian capital on a high hill above the Moscow River. The height of the Kremlin walls, narrow loopholes, and distances between the towers, all these tell us that the Kremlin is a fortress in the first place. But once you enter the Kremlin, an impression changes. Spacious squares and beautiful gardens, majestic palaces, and an abundance of temples spread out about 28 hectares of territory. The city in the city, which had been forming for many centuries, preserves today Russian architectural monuments of the 14th, 15th, and 16th centuries. This is a place where important decisions are made, state ceremonies are held. Over the centuries, it has witnessed many important events from the defining of Russia's borders, defining of Russian borders to military operations. The Moscow Kremlin has survived fires, wars, revolutions, and turned into a defensive fortress. It is situated on the Borovitsky Hill, on the left bank of the Moskva River, and it used to be the residence of the Russian Tsars and hierarchs of the Russian Orthodox Church. Today, it's the residence of the President of the Russian Federation. So it has been the residence of the President of the Russian Federation since 1991. The starting point of the history of the Kremlin and the Red Square was the middle of the 12th century, the time of the first mention of Moscow in Russian chronicles and Russian historical sources. Grand Prince Yuri Dolgoruki ordered the construction of a protected fortress, which would be surrounded by a moat and a stockade. One of the most charming aspects of the Kremlin is its architecture. There are many architectural monuments and attractions inside the walls of the Kremlin. From 1366 to 1368, under Grand Duke Dmitry Donskoy, the wooden walls of the Kremlin were replaced by walls and towers made of local white stone. In 1495, under Grand Duke Ivan III, the Moscow Kremlin received new brick towers and red stone walls, a new fortification, and an even larger territory. And now we shall take a look at the most famous pieces of Moscow Kremlin and Kremlin's architecture. Faceted chamber. Is the first on the list. The faceted chamber is a ceremonial throne hall for solemn receptions in a new grand princely palace of Ivan III. The palace got its name from the architectural solution of the main eastern facade facing Cathedral Square. It is lined with the white stone blocks, each faceted on 4 sides. Such stone processing, typical of Italian Renaissance architecture, was called diamond rustication. The building is made of brick. The reception hall, in the form of one pillar chamber covered by 4 cross vaults, is located on the high basement floor. In the 16th century, the interior walls and vaults of the building were decorated with fresco paintings. Today, the faceted chamber stands as one of the most representative rooms in the Russian president's residence. So you can see both exterior and interiors of the faceted chamber of the Moscow Kremlin. The Spasskaya Tower of the Moscow Kremlin and the Kremlin chimes. The Spasskaya Tower of the Moscow Kremlin was also built under Ivan III of Moscow. It is a symbol of Russia embodying the history, architecture, and culture of the country. The tower faces Red Square with its main facade and its silhouette crowned with a ruby star is familiar to everyone. The Spasskaya Tower means the Savior's Tower, and it was erected in 1491. Its construction marked the beginning of the development of the eastern line of the Kremlin fortifications. The gates of the tower facing Red Square have always been the main ceremonial entrance to the Kremlin. They were particularly revered by the people and considered holy. The gate served for departures of the Tsar, solemn passages of the Patriarch. Patriarch is the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, and they also served for or were used for meeting foreign ambassadors. The west clock on the Spasskaya Tower was installed according to the design of Christopher Galloway. In 1707, the Dutch chimes with music replaced them. In 1851, those chimes underwent total repair. In 1920, during the restoration of the Spasskaya Tower, the tune of the International was played on the chimes. The melody of the Kremlin chimes broadcast through the country on New Year's Eve every year, and it has become a sound symbol of the change of epochs and hope for the best. The star on the Spasskaya Tower was first installed in 1935, a new one with a wingspan of 3.75 meters. 3.75 meters was replaced there. Was placed there in 1937. A lamp with a power of 5,000 watts burns 24 hours a day inside the star. Spasskaya Tower or Savas Tower has 10 floors. Its height until the star is 67.3 meters, with the star 71 meters. The image of the Spasskaya Tower is used on official documents and souvenirs. Okay, next we're going to briefly discuss the Assumption Cathedral, one of the most famous cathedrals in Moscow and in Russia. The Assumption Cathedral was erected at the end of the 15th century, and for the next 400 years it operated as the religious center of Russia, hosting events of national significance. The Assumption Cathedral's architecture and decoration reflect its important role in Russian history. The walls are covered in precious frescoes. The medieval iconostasis reaches from floor to ceiling, and the walls are lined with the tombs of patriarchs and metropolitans. So patriarchs and metropolitans, these are the heads of the Russian Orthodox Church. The first stone cathedral was laid on this date in the 14th century, in 1326, by the Moscow Metropolitan Peter and Grand Duke Ivan I. In the late 14th century, his descendant Ivan III. In the late 15th century, Ivan III, as part of his reconstruction of the Moscow Kremlin, ordered the new Assumption Cathedral to be built. It was erected by Italian architect Aristotele Fioravanti between 1475 and 1479, using the latest technologies to ensure the cathedral's great size and stability and beauty, of course. For the next 4 centuries, the Assumption Cathedral was the religious center of Russia. It was the setting for events of national significance, such as coronations of Russia's princes and tsars, inaugurations of metropolitans and patriarchs, services to bless upcoming military campaigns, and military victories, and the announcement of important public acts. From the 15th to the 17th centuries, the heads of the Russian Orthodox Church were laid to rest in the Assumption Cathedral, although the majority of royal weddings were held in the Annunciation Cathedral, that used to be the personal chapel of the royal family. The most important weddings took place in the Assumption Cathedral. As with the other cathedrals of the Kremlin's Cathedral Square, the Assumption Cathedral was looted by the Polish-Lithuanian armies and Napoleon's army in 1612 and 1812, respectively, and suffered fire damage numerous times over the centuries. Following the October Revolution of 1917, the Assumption Cathedral was turned into a museum. Lenin, the head of the Bolshevik party that captured power in Russia in October 1917, personally allowed one last Easter service to be held in 1918, and services did not recommence until 1990 because Bolsheviks were atheists. They did not believe in God. But anyway, thanks to restoration work undertaken during the Soviet period, the cathedral's magnificent interior was extremely well preserved. Now let's turn to Tarim Palace. Another magnificent piece of Moscow Kremlin's architecture. The photos are on the slide. Stone living quarters in the royal palace, later named the Tarim Palace, was built from 1635 to 1636 for Tsar Mikhail Fedorovich, the first member of the Romanov dynasty in Russia. Traditional features of Russian wooden architecture can be seen in the buildings. Stepped construction with open galleries, terraces, porches, and staircases. Nevertheless, it was representing a new type of a multi-story residential building made of brick, already generating an enfilade structure of indoor premises, which became typical for later palaces. A complex layout and rich decoration of its facades make the palace exceptionally picturesque and ornate. Next, we shall talk about the Grand Kremlin Palace. A new imperial palace was built on the initiative of Nicholas I from 1838 to 1850. At present, the entire complex of the Grand Kremlin Palace, except for the Armory Chamber, is the main residence of the President of the Russian Federation. Next, we are going to talk about the Red Square. It's a symbol of Russia, a symbol of Russian unity. The heroism of the Russian people and the military and labor glory of many compatriots, many Russians, and Soviet people as well. The Red Square in Moscow is considered a symbol of Russia due to its history, architecture, events, and cultural significance. The square embodies the country's unity, its rich history and cultural heritage. The history of the Red Square dates back to the 15th and 16th centuries. Originally, it was a place of trade. The square received its present name in 17th century only, and literally it means beautiful. Red means beautiful, or it used to mean beautiful in the old Russian language that was used those days. It was then that the square was decorated with the Spasskaya Tower and paved with logs. After the October Revolution of 1917, the Red Square became the primary venue for state celebrations and demonstrations. On June the 24th, 1945, the square hosted the historic Victory Parade, marking the USSR's victory over Nazi Germany in the Second World War and the Great Patriotic War that was the most important part of World War II. Here are the authentic photos of that parade. And today, Red Square hosts significant state and cultural events. Russia, with its rich history and diverse culture, boasts a large number of monuments that embody the spirit of its people and important events in its past. These cultural masterpieces not only attract tourists from around the world, but also serve as symbols of national pride. And some commemorate national heroes and scientific achievements, while others are dedicated to major historical events. All tell their own unique stories. The motherland calls as the most grandiose and at the same time the country's most important monument. It was erected in 1967 in Volgograd. It's nearly 500 kilometers from Voronezh, so it was erected in Volgograd as a symbol of the patriotism and heroism of the Soviet people who devoted all their efforts to fighting the enemy during the Great Patriotic War. The Motherland Calls monument stands off Mamayev Kurgan, the site of brutal fighting. The site became a mass grave for nearly 35,000 people who devoted all their efforts to fighting the enemy during the Great Patriotic War. And today, this hill is home to the heroes of the Battle of Stalingrad Memorial Complex. The sculpture depicts a woman with a sword in her hand. It personifies the motherland, calling its sons to battle. The statue's face is stern. It's stern and its mouth is open in a scream. It is one of the tallest monuments in the world and the tallest in Russia. The figure, including the sword, reaches a height of 85 meters and with a pedestal 87 meters. The monument weighs 8,000 tons. The bronze horseman is a statue of the Russian Tsar Peter the Great, Peter the First or Peter the Great, mounted on a horse. It's located in the Senate Square in St. Petersburg. Erected in 1782 and opened to the public that same year, the statue was commissioned by Catherine II, Catherine the Great. It's said that the horse on its hind legs represents the Tsardom of Russia, and or the Russian Empire, and the horseman Peter the Great is the monarch who controls it. The horse can be seen trampling a serpent, which is a symbol of Russian victory over its enemies under the rule and guidance of Peter. He looks ahead with his arm outstretched and gestures towards the future of Russia. The statue is sat on an enormous thunderstone pedestal, thought to be the largest stone ever moved by humans. It originally weighed 1,500 tons, but during transportation it was carved down to its current size. It's now one of the most important symbols of the city of St. Petersburg and Russia. And I remind you that St. Petersburg used to be the Russian capital in the age of empire. The next monument we're going to discuss is a monument to Minin and Pozharsky in Moscow. It serves as a profound piece of Russia's cultural and historical tapestry. Positioned in the iconic Red Square, it faces the magnificent St. Basil's Cathedral. This landmark pays homage to Kuzma Minin and Dmitry Pozharsky, two pivotal figures recognized for their leadership in mobilizing Russian volunteer army to expel the Polish-Lithuanian forces during the time of troubles in the early 17th century. Their valor and commitment to their motherland are immortalized through this statue, making it a significant milestone in Russia's history. The time of troubles was a chaotic era in Russian history, spanning from 1598 to 1613. This period was characterized by political instability, foreign occupation, and widespread internal discord. With Russia's central leadership weakened, the nation faced severe challenges, whereas external powers recognizing Russia's vulnerable state sought to influence and control portions of the region, portions of the country, of the European part of the country. During this time of unrest and uncertainty, two figures emerged as national heroes. These were Kuzma Minin and a nobleman, Prince Dmitry Pozharsky. Kuzma Minin was a merchant from Nizhny Novgorod. Nizhny Novgorod is one of central Russian cities, and it was a hometown to Kuzma Minin, and he was a true patriot of his country. On the other hand, Dmitry Pozharsky came from noble roots, bringing not just noble lineage, but also strategic acumen to the table. Together they united the Russian people, organizing a volunteer army, and played a crucial role in liberating Moscow in 1612. This monumental victory was pivotal, leading to the eventual foundation of the Romanov dynasty, which restored stability and central authority to the Russian throne. On November the 4th, National Unity Day is celebrated in Russia. It's a public holiday that recalls the events of 1612, when the People's Militia, led by Nizhny Novgorod merchant Kuzma Minin and Prince Dmitry Pozharsky, liberated Moscow from Polish invaders, Polish military forces. This day symbolizes the unity and solidarity of the Russian people during one of the most difficult periods in the country's history. The holiday was established in 2005 and has become a day off for all Russians. So another symbol of Russia is Alexander Pushkin. And Alexander Pushkin is considered a symbol of Russia, the embodiment of its national spirit, cultural richness, and creative freedom and creativity of the Russian people. Pushkin's works reflect the soul of the Russian people, their history, language, traditions, and worldview. Pushkin is considered the founder of the modern Russian literary language. The poet himself once said in response to the question, "Where do you serve now?" "I am registered in Russia," he said. A few years have passed since the poet's since the poet's death, and Apollon Grigoriev, another poet, critic, and philosopher, deduced a formula that has become classic. Pushkin is everything to us, he said. He represents all the spiritual, special things that remain ours after all the collisions we have with the others and other worlds. He meant different cultures and foreign countries, foreign arts, poetry, and so on, because Pushkin is special to Russia. The poet and his legacy were already perceived as proof that Russia has an original, rich culture. Pushkin did not separate the history of his country from his own history, from the history of his family. He complained Russia is too little known to Russians. His other sad confession is also known. We are lazy and inquisitive. It is us. He did not separate himself from Russian society. He understood how important it was to be faithful to family traditions when they coincided with the interests of the country. For nothing in the world, he wrote, for nothing in the world would I want to change my fatherland or have a different story than the story of our ancestors. The way God gave it to us, these words are from his letter. They were written a few months before the poet's death. Pushkin's sun did not set or fade. The poet's memory is cherished by the people. Cities, streets, squares, and theaters, libraries, and educational institutions are named after him. Monuments to Pushkin have been erected in many cities in Russia and abroad. The poet's works have been translated into dozens of languages, and his birthday, the 6th of June, is celebrated as Pushkin's Day in Russia and Russian Language Day. Today, Pushkin is not just a classic, but a living symbol. His lines are quoted, his characters become memes, and his life inspires new interpretations. The next symbol of Russia is Khorovod. Oh, yeah. Here's a monument to Alexander Pushkin right in the center of Voronezh. And let's turn to discuss the next symbol of Russia. Khorovod Khorovod, folk dance of Russia. The Khorovod is a traditional Russian folk dance. We want and the name means circle dancing. The name means circle dancing and chorus singing at the same time. The Khorovod dance is one of the most ancient folk dances that has Slavic roots. This dance was performed at folk festivals and pagan rituals. Khorovod was performed in the following way. Women stand in a circle and move from east to west as the sun goes across the sky. Foreign visitors noticed that Khorovod reflected some traits of Russian character as enthusiasm, creativity, and joy of living. The Khorovod was also a symbol of unity and friendship. Dancers usually held hands or the little finger of their partner. They could hold the opposite ends of a handkerchief, a shawl, a belt, or a garland. In some regions, dancers did not move in a circle but in a line, keeping at a precise distance from each other. Khorovod patterns largely depended on location, as the dance was popular in all regions of Russia, each of which had its own unique features of the dance. In northern regions, the Khorovod was distinguished for its gentle, reticent, subdued manner and exceptional melodiousness, as if in allusion to the delicate and austere beauty of the north, as well as some of the inherent traits of the Russian soul. Northern Khorovods were expressive and emotionally charged. In central regions in the vicinity of Moscow, Khorovods were more cheerful, lively and light-hearted. The dance was accompanied by another outstanding creation of Russian folk art, incredibly beautiful folk songs. People would clap their hands, tap their feet, and make fast and energetic movements. Khorovod dances in the south, with their beautiful, balmy weather, were famous for their impetuous, dashing movements and elaborate patterns. Southern Khorovods usually involve huge crowds and participants. And finally, we're going to briefly discuss Russian Troika. The traditional Russian carriage, drawn by a team of 3 horses harnessed abreast. It has become a symbol of Russia and is widely employed in folkloric scenes, movies, paintings, and literature. It first appeared in the 18th century and was mainly used for postal services, for transporting passengers, mainly for long distances, and later in festivities such as weddings. The Russian Troika is known for its high speed, up to 50 kilometers an hour, and was often compared to a flying bird. The high speed was possible due to the special training and arrangements of the horses and the carriage. The horse is in the middle, called the shaft horse. It trots, and acts like a locomotive, while the traces the horses on its sides, maintain a brisk gallop. This method of arranging the horses became popular not only for speed but also for endurance, good cargo capacity, maneuverability, and safety. A 3-horse carriage was much more stable than the 2-horse carriage widely used in Europe. Driving a troika required special skills. Those wishing to become troika drivers had to be trained from a young age and be physically fit. The arms of the driver sometimes had to endure up to 50 kilos of weight while trying to maneuver the horses. Not only the drivers needed special training, but the horses did too. The Alov Trotter, the most famous breed of horse developed in Russia, was considered to be the best troika horse because of its long stride, speedy trot, stamina, and at the same time beauty and elegance. As the troika became widespread, the creation of special signals to regulate troika traffic became necessary, as they ran at very high speed, especially postal troikas, and they were not traffic rules at that time. Sound signals were developed to let the personnel at the next postal station know when the troika was approaching, so that they could prepare fresh trotter horses. Peter I in the 18th century tried to implement the European practice of using horns. However, the coachman preferred to send out a deafening whistle. This kind of warning was later banned and replaced by shaft bells, which became an integral part of the famous Russian troika. The Valdai bells were particularly famous, producing a clear singing sound, so that some even compared the Russian troika to a musical instrument. A troika was usually accompanied by about 100 bells on the bridle, on the saddle, and inside the many harness brushes. The singing of the many bells, combined with the sound of hooves running, created a unique melody pleasing to the ears. But troikas were also a joy for the eyes, with their richly decorated harnesses and bows adorned with painting and fretwork. With the development of railways, the troika was no longer used in postal services. It was still used during special festivities, such as weddings, and also became a sport. Competitions were extremely popular in Russia in the middle of the 19th century, especially in so today we have discussed 3 questions. Historical background of the ideological foundations of Russian civilization. That was our first question. We have identified the influence of Christianity on the context between the Russian lands and the peoples of the steppe, especially the Mongols, as factors that influenced Russian culture, statehood, and mentality. Second, we have touched upon value, features, or constants of Russian worldview through the lens of a 5-tier model: man, family, society, state, and country. And I have commented upon both official and unofficial symbols of Russia that reflect the uniqueness of Russian civilization and worldview. Goodbye. See you soon. That is all for today.